We've heard about protecting nature, and now let's explore how it can protect us with one of the foremost voices in herbal medicine, Roy Upton. He's president of the American Herbal Pharmacopoeia, a co-founder of the American Herbalist Guild, and a leading expert in herbal quality control. He also serves on the expert committees that shape the field of botanical medicine. Please, Mr. Upton, it's yours now.
Thank you. First, I want to thank Thomas for the invitation, kind invitation to be here. I've really enjoyed it. So I'll give you a quick rundown on the American Herbal Pharmacopoeia first. We were founded in 1995, and it came out of political activity where FDA was threatening to remove herbs from the market in the United States. I don't know if many of you may not know, in the United States, there's no category for herbal medicines. You either have foods or drugs, and now we have dietary supplements. But at that time, in the early 1990s, they were talking about removing the majority of supplements, especially herbal supplements, from the market. And everybody on both sides of the fence, people that were supporting herbal medicine and people who were against herbal medicine, were always asking the same questions. How do you know what you know about the herbs? Quality, drug interaction, safety, contraindications, use in pregnancy, things like that. And I realized there wasn't a single repository for us. There were very few botanical monographs in the United States Pharmacopoeia at the time, and so I found the American Herbal Pharmacopoeia to compile that information. In each of our monographs, we take the herb all the way from where it's grown, how it should be picked, when it should be picked, how it should be dried, processed. And then we do complete morphological and microscopic examination of each of the botanicals as part of our identity testing, and then a full chemical profile, and then full therapeutic and safety reviews. So, and then once we have the information compiled, we send it all over the world to medicinal plant experts, botanists, chemists, physicians, pharmacists, pharmacologists, toxicologists, so that when it's finished, it's one of the most comprehensive documents on that particular herb in the English language. So that's AHP in a nutshell. Then in August of 2023, I was able to participate in WHO's first global summit on traditional medicine in Gujarat, India. A lot of people have made reference to that. I've known about WHO's work in traditional medicine forever, but I never was part of the process. And so when I went to the summit, I had all these ideas of what I thought they should be doing with regards to herbal medicine. And from the opening session, it was very clear they were already doing it, just doing it in the rest of the world, because there's very little representation from the United States. Most of us that were there from all of us who were there from the United States were all private, whereas the other countries, you had the Minister of Health or the Deputy Minister of Health, government officials representing their country, their respective countries, and there was very little representation from there was no representation from the United States from an official perspective. And that both, when I came back from the Global Summit, I was both ecstatic seeing the work that was being done in the rest of the world, but also very sad and very angry of how far behind the United States is. So we founded the Global Alliance for Integrative Health and Medicine to help create a unified voice. Because one of the primary messages from the Global Summit, it was stated that we live in silos. We're all doing our work separately, and there's no unified voice. What they were talking about was the separation of Western medicine and traditional medicine. But it's the same in traditional medicine, is that we don't speak with one voice. The homeopaths do this, the naturopaths, the functional medicine people, the different buckets. We have to bring all those buckets together, and that's what we're going to try to do with this global alliance. And right now, it's a consortium of about 110 individuals and organizations representing about 35 countries. And I'm hoping after this, we'll have 45 countries after this Congress. these are some of the organizations, which include universities, professional herbal medicine practitioner groups, naturopaths, acupuncturists, Chinese and Ayurvedic medicine, and interestingly, mostly throughout the European Union, where much of this work is being done. So why do we actually need herbal medicine? And I just point out astragalus as a case history. In the late 1980s, early 1990s, or maybe it was 1990s, early 2000s, MD Anderson, pharmaceutical company, went to MD Anderson. Dr. Narayanan was here from MD Anderson. Pharmaceutical company went to them to investigate the use of astragalus for its anti-cancer activity. One of the primary investigators was a gentleman named Mavliget. Dr. Mavliget had been at MD Anderson for like 17 years. Long story short, they tested both the crude herb and a purified extract. Cycloartane alkaloid, I think it was, and a polysaccharide along with like a tea. And the tea worked just as well as the isolate did. And so the pharmaceutical company said, I can't do anything novel with this. The tea is going to work. So they discontinued the research. Mavliget said that in 17 years that he had been at MD Anderson, he had never seen anything that worked as well as astragalus for as many different aspects of cancer care and anything that he's ever seen before. And he was livid, mad that they pulled that research. Same thing with an herb like hawthorn. When we did our Crataegus monograph, I found this gentleman who's a cardiovascular physiologist in New York. And I asked him to do the therapeutic review of pharmacology of Crataegus. And he said, Roy, I don't know anything about herbal medicine. I said, you don't have to know anything about herbal medicine. You only need to know about the cardiovascular system and how to review literature. When he was done with that literature review, he said that I can't believe that we didn't learn about this in medical school in all my years of cardiology, because again, we don't have anything in Western drugs for cardiology care that even comes close to what hawthorn does for the general health of the cardiovascular system. So I just make these two examples. We all know the value of herbal medicine, but they don't. And if we could get that information out more effectively, I think we'd have better integration. One of the primary motivating factors for WHO in promoting herbal medicine historically was to provide marginalized communities with adequate health care. It was mostly it started out actually in China, in rural China, with a barefoot doctor program that China had, and that the people that didn't have access to Western medical care, they figured we need to give them some kind of care, and herbal medicine was that care, recognizing that there were traditional medicine practitioners throughout the world. Now, with the Gujarat Declaration, and actually a little bit before that, for the first time, they've proclaimed to the world that traditional, integrative, and complementary medicine is not just for the marginalized anymore, that it is critical for primary health care for all nations. For me, that's a game changer, because no authoritative medical body has ever made a statement like that before. And so I think this is the time where we all have to bring our voices together. We have to unify behind specific actions, set up our priorities for each of our different buckets, our homeopathic, herbal medicine, whatever buckets, and speak with unified goals and with a unified voice. And that's what I hope to do. When we look at the global use of herbal medicine worldwide, it's on a trajectory up, and in some cases 20 to 30% growth economically. And if that's what's happening in the industry, the same thing is happening on the consumer side. Then we should look at why consumers use herbal products. Now, this is a little bit US-centric. This was a survey that was done in the US, but it's predominantly they were being used to stay healthy, prevent illness, to promote longevity, take care of their family, and also to treat conditions that weren't being well treated in Western medicine. But if you look at those first 4 or 5 metrics, they're all wellness metrics. They're health metrics. They're not disease metrics. And there are no pharmaceuticals for wellness. There's no pharmaceuticals for longevity. Maybe the only pharmaceutical for health is Viagra, right, for guys. But for the most part, there are no pharmaceuticals for health and wellness. And that's where we have our strength. But we also have strength in providing therapeutic options that aren't available in Western medicine. We have different paradigms that they do. I'll just give one example. In the United States, there's 650,000 hysterectomies that are performed every year. Half of them are considered unnecessary by second opinion. The reason is they don't know what to do with functional gynecological imbalances, endometriosis, polycystic ovaries, fibroids, etc. So they just remove the uterus. They don't know that Chinese medicine has been using herbs and formulas for gynecological care for about 1,200 years, or Ayurveda for a few thousand years. We need to make women aware that they have options. They don't know they have options. So, reasons why, generally speaking, Western medicine, people oppose herbal medicine. The biggest one is lack of sufficient safety data, and then also lack of sufficient data regarding effectiveness. They talk about clearly defined dose responses, quality control, concerns regarding interactions with conventional drugs, etc. In the case of sufficient safety and efficacy data, absolutely wrong conclusion. We have 3,200 years of written history of the use of something like Triphala in Ayurveda, or a few thousand years of individual herbs, from garlic to even echinacea, several hundred years in US history. There is sufficient safety data. Second, efficacy data, we know they work. Just because they don't know it works, that it works, doesn't mean it doesn't work. And we don't really have to convince them that it does work. We only have to convince our patients, or even the patients are coming to us anyways. Clearly defined dose response. Astragalus is a perfectly good example. This is from a conventional medical perspective, most docs want to know exacting doses. There are very few herbs that we use today that have a narrow therapeutic window. Most of the herbs that we use have a very wide therapeutic index, where most of the drugs that are used have a relatively narrow therapeutic index. So if you were to take twice as much of warfarin as a blood thinner, you can die, right? Or digoxin or any cardiovascular antihypertensive medication, you take twice or 3 times the amount, you can die. If I take 5, 10, 15, 20 times the amount of astragalus, nothing. Or Chyavanprash or Triphala or Amla or whatever herb you want. Not the digitalis, not opium poppy, but most of the herbs that we use have a very wide therapeutic index. Exacting dose responses are not needed for that. They are needed for aconite. Aconite continues to be used in Ayurveda and Chinese medicine, but they're not for most of the herbs. Quality control, very legitimate concern. Lots of garbage products on the American market and on the international market. The European quality of European herbal products was always very high. And now with the introduction of supplements within the European Union, now that quality, they're starting to see the same problems that we see in the US. Very poor quality. And most of that problem comes from both intentional adulteration and unintentional adulteration. Companies not knowing how to assess the quality of herbs. Most of us as practitioners, when we were in school, we weren't trained in quality control unless you went to China. I don't know how it is in India, whether they have heavy-duty training in quality control in India. But in China, it's integral to being an herbalist. But in the West, almost not at all. So this is a legitimate concern. The other semi-legitimate concern is interactions with conventional medications. We have not had that challenge historically. That's a new challenge. But when you look at the world's data, pharmacovigilance data, there's very few clinically relevant drug interactions that you see. And the ones that you mostly see are with warfarin. And warfarin, if you sneeze, you have an interaction. If you eat broccoli, you have an interaction. If you drink grapefruit juice, you have an interaction. The problem is not with the herb, the problem is with the drug, because it has a very narrow therapeutic index. And so we have to learn about what their opposition is and also be able to counter that. There's a last concern that consumers won't seek proper treatment, and especially in things like cancer. That's not that relevant in the US, because in almost all cases of people using herbal medicines and alternative medicine, they're also under the care of an oncologist. Now in Malaysia, it's a different story, or Bhutan might be a different story, because older people, I don't want to go to the doctor, I'll have some digestive problem, I'll take something and they'll feel better, but they don't know a tumor's growing until it's too late. So in third world countries or developing countries, it's more of an issue than it is in Europe or North America, where people are under the care of oncologists. The message I want to put out here is that we haven't done the bigger we, individually and as organizations, we haven't done our work well enough to make our message clear regarding the safety, efficacy, and potential for quality of our herbal products. And this is, I think, a big thing that has to change. As well. So I was asked specifically to also give a global snapshot of herbal product regulation. I think most people know this, but traditional medicines are integral in Asia, European Union, Middle East, and parts of Central and South America, as well as the United Kingdom. In the United States, herbal products are regulated as supplements. Other countries also have supplements in conjunction with traditional medicines. Canada is unique in that they have a natural health products category, and in Australia, complementary medicine. One of the important things to recognize about the regulatory categories, that in all countries, with the exception of Mexico, that have a traditional medicine category, those products are accepted based on historical use of safety and efficacy. You do a literature review, you do a basic chemical analysis, look at potential toxicity, you make a dossier, and for the most part, you can approve of a traditional medicine. Dietary supplements, anybody can basically put a dietary supplement on the market as long as the ingredient is safe, and you can make claims for health benefits, but not for disease treatment of disease or prevention of disease. Same natural health products in Canada. It's basically based on a literature review. You don't have to do formal tox and efficacious studies. Now, the important perspective there, anybody have any estimate on what it costs to bring a drug to market in the United States? Just think about it. Versus in China, versus in India, versus in Mexico. In the United States, to bring a drug to market costs in excess of $200 million to bring a drug to market. In Ghana, you could do it for $50, and the government does it for them. It doesn't require a lot of research and development and manufacturing facilities. The government does the testing for the grandmother who has a traditional medicine. Now, in the European Union, it's about $200,000 just to do the application. Whatever. But the cost associated, so many times the Western medical people, if this is safe and effective like you say, get it approved as a drug. No. Nobody is going to do that for echinacea, astragalus, and chamomile tea. They're trying to treat chamomile tea in the same way they treat an artificial heart. It just doesn't work that way, and we have to know this. Another reason, why do we use herbal medicine? We have to look at the impact of pharmaceuticals. There's two ways for us to promote traditional medicine. One is by extolling the benefits of Ayurveda or of Chinese, that we've been doing this for a few thousand years and we know they have benefit. The other way is by bashing Western medicine. Those are the kind of the two ways. It takes both. They have to wake up to the fact that they don't have all the answers. As of 2010, pharmaceutical medications overtook cigarettes and alcohol as the primary cause of preventable deaths in 6 countries. How does that happen that the things that we're supposed to be taking for health and wellness are now killing more people than cigarettes and alcohol? And this is when they're used properly. When somebody dies of an herbal toxicity, usually it's because of a contamination or an idiosyncratic reaction or something else, not when they used it properly. Whereas most of these deaths are happening when those drugs are being used properly. So now we have this mantra that herbs are potentially unsafe. Norman Farnsworth was the leading pharmacognosist in the United States for 50, 60 years, University of Illinois, Chicago. He did a review for World Health Organization a bunch of years ago in which he reviewed all of the toxicological data and pharmacovigilance data that was available in the world, and basically said that in all classes of substances, herbal products are the least problematic. Same, Ralph Edwards. He was the director of the monitoring, Adverse Reactions Monitoring Center in Geneva for WHO for about 9 years. Same thing. He said, we look at the data, we have to look at the data, but when we look at the data, the incidence of adverse effects and fatalities due to herbal products is very low. And of course, we have to pay attention to it, he says, but it's very low. So that's the real world of herbal medicine regarding safety. Quality control, oh, I'm sorry, take that back. On both safety and efficacy, in addition to the traditional information that we have, we also have several hundred botanical monographs that have been addressed by, formally addressed or reviewed by government authorities. The European Medicine Agency's monographs, the American Herbal Pharmacopoeia monographs, Natural Health Product monographs of Canada, China, Ayurveda. There's several hundred botanicals in which the safety and efficacy have already been established by competent medical authorities and governmental authorities, so we should be able to take that concern off the table. The next concern is quality control, but again, between USP, AHP, Ayurvedic Pharmacopoeia, European Pharmacopoeia, Chinese Pharmacopoeia, we have several hundred herb quality control standards already in place for countries to use, that could be used to integrate botanical medicine literally tomorrow. One of the things that I'm proposing is that we should be looking at comparing the safety, efficacy, cost-effectiveness, access, and environmental sustainability of herbal medicines against Western drugs. If in almost all cases, we're always, is this equally or more effective than the drugs we have? Maybe yes, maybe no. But if we were to use these 6 metrics, I'm willing to bet, and this would be a job for this young man here, I'm willing to bet if we were to look at herbs and drugs according to these 6 metrics, 60 to 70% of them are going to come more advantageous towards herbal medicines than Western drugs. And then, again, why do we use herbal medicine versus Western medicine? The U.S. is probably the most Western medicine dominant country on earth. Best system in the world for critical care. If you have your arm cut off, you don't want to put cayenne pepper on your arm. But we have the worst healthcare statistics in every metric of wellness. So that tells you something's really wrong. I'm going to skip through these because of time. Here's one of the things that I would love to put on a table for the international community to consider. 10 years ago, Switzerland enacted a constitution, an amendment to their constitution that made it a human right, a Swiss right, to access the type of health care that they want. I propose that WHO should develop language that would make that able to be integrated into constitutions worldwide. That health is a human right. Because that's not in the US Constitution, and it's not in everybody's Constitution. We never have to say anything about alternative medicine or anything else. We only have to say health is a human right, and it's the person to choose what is in their best interest of their healing modality, something along those lines. So with that, I could go on all day. I welcome you to reach out to me on the work we're going to do with the Global Alliance. All of these are different buckets going from botany to quality control. And thank you for your attention.
So, Mr. Upton, thank you for your truly thought-provoking expertise with us, for sharing it with us.